Welcome back to Melodic Memories of Light's Monarch. I'm Casey, and today I just wanted to kind of chat about Lord of the Rings, the new series, Lord of the Rings Rings of Power Season 2. It's coming out. By the time of next week, it'll be the final episode, and it's something that my friend Ryan and I have been watching just ever since it came out probably 2 years ago, season one. It's one of those things that is a prequel. It tells you what happened before the Lord of the Rings, kind of the beginning of everything. And it's very eye opening for someone that has never read this Silmarillion or really even knows much about the history. Like, I know the majority of it from just over the years watching YouTube videos, following that Lord of the Rings guy on TikTok, if you know, you know, and just being a fan. Like Lord of the Rings, the movies, the trilogy by Peter Jackson, the legendary trilogy that has been praised time and time again for good reason. That is what got me into the Lord of the Rings, into the whole world. And The Hobbit itself, I think, was really my first ever experience with this world. And those are like the original things. The Hobbit itself didn't get a movie franchise until much later because it was released again, I think, 10 years after The Lord of the Rings. And for some reason, it was spread across three movies, which really, realistically, it shouldn't have. But, which is even crazy to think that it got an extended cut. Like, I kind of have to question why, because the movies shouldn't have been as long as they were in the first place, and yet somehow they were still extended even further. Like, they're good. I am a fan of all of them. And of course, I have the extended cuts on Blu ray. I would love to get the 4K sets. That's on my radar, but not yet. It's a little expensive, so I'm holding out. But the Hobbit itself was the very first experience I had with The Lord of the Rings as a whole, as my dad ended up showing me the original cartoon that was released, I believe, in the 70s. I want to say 1977. Very old, but also very good. I remember it very fondly, and the way that they adapted the book, the Hobbit, that was supposed to be just kind of like a collection of stories that Tolkien would tell his kids at bedtime, that they made it into an actual movie. Cartoon, yes, not live action, as it wasn't made live action until much, much later, but the cartoon, it captured everything that it needed to. Like, it told the story of Bilbo and him getting drug off to help these dwarves get their home back, and Bilbo saving the dwarves from, be it trolls or giant spiders or orcs or even just against the dragon. Like, it was Bilbo's story. He was the burglar, but he was also the hero. Like, he saved these dwarves. And all of this kind of nuance was lost in the actual trilogy that was released. Not sure why. Again, they just studio interference. It's the classic kind of thing. Warner Bros, they never know when to not do something. Like, they always push and push for more money, and it's really sad to see from like someone that just enjoys creativity and the world that someone created. Like, it just shows that Warner Bros really has no respect. And I know this could go off into another tangent, so I'll try not to focus on it or dwell on it too long, but it is something that needs to be said, as Warner Bros. And a lot of other companies, they just take these ideas, these original worlds, these original thoughts that were creations of these legendary people, and makes it into something less than what it should be, what it was, what it deserves to be. Like, not even just Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, where Lord of the Rings, they did that justice, but I honestly think it's because one of the rare flukes. It was really before we got into today's society where it seems that everything needs to be connected to everything, and in order for something to be enjoyable, it has to have all these different characters that were in this other film or this other franchise, or we need to make it a big huge spectacle, multiverse, everything like must happen, we must milk this for everything. And I don't like that as a consumer and as a creative. I feel like that takes away from everything that it is and everything that it should have been and everything that it really deserves to be. It's sad. And as I said, Warner Bros. Isn't the only studio to do this. They're very money hungry, as I've come to know with not only the Lord of the Rings franchise as we know it, but also DC. That is also something else they own, the DC characters, the superheroes. And you go back and look at the Snyderverse, which started with The Man of Steel and went into Batman v Superman and Zack Snyder's Justice League as we know it now, because apparently that's all it is to them. It was supposed to be so much more, and all the way back to Batman v Superman, we've seen them step in and change things and try to alter this creative vision that this director would have or these creators would have and deviate them from not only their original material but also the original like director's idea to just try and fit some mold, some mainstream mold that they think will work. And when it comes to DC, they were trying to copy exactly what Marvel did. And I don't know why we feel the need to just not have original ideas anymore or even like original creative advances. Whereas there shouldn't be any hesitation in doing so. Like, I don't understand why people aren't given their creative freedoms and trust into making these things, because 9 times out of 10, it's going to succeed without studio interference. Like, think of all the great movies. They have studios to fund the projects and to then distribute the projects. But whenever they get involved with the creativeness of it all, it just ruins what could have been amazing. But enough on that, because there's many other studios that do it, like Disney. Think of Star Wars for the big one. Like, that is a shell of its former self, and it's so sad to see. But to go back to the Lord of the Rings, just as a concept itself, the movies, and they are fresh on my mind because of the series, of course, but you think back to the original movies and the soundtrack it had. Now, the Lord of the Rings soundtrack, I want to say, is probably the most recognizable piece of music. Like, all of it, literally all of it, is so recognizable in pop culture and the fantasy genre as we know it. As everything in the fantasy genre really pulled from Lord of the Rings in one way or another. So if you love any sort of fantasy-esque goblins, dragons, D&D like things, you can thank Tolkien and the Lord of the Rings for that even existing. And on top of it all, the movies themselves with the soundtrack by Howard Shore, the legend himself, like, he didn't have to go as hard as he did because the movies themselves are already giant spectacles and a huge undertaking. And the soundtrack pushed it over the top. There's so many songs. I don't know the names of them. I could never give you the names of them, but you hear them and you're just thrown in. You're sucked into the world that they were creating, and it helps because they knew that music was an important factor, that it is an important factor in the atmosphere of the world and the story itself. Like, it goes hand in hand. As Howard Shore was around the very beginning when they started the movies, he was a part of the whole creative process, and it shows. Nothing really takes the music as seriously as Lord of the Rings when it comes to pop culture, at least nowadays. And I really wish that Hollywood, studios, whoever would kind of take a step back and really look at what made The Lord of the Rings great. Not just the music, not just the storytelling, but how things can just be their own thing. Even if it is a universe, as Lord of the Rings has many stories within it, within Middle Earth, I should say. Like, that concept, that universe, it doesn't need to be expanded on with falsities and other creative liberties when realistically, there's enough there for it to just be its own thing. And I don't know why this oversaturation in our culture seems to be something that has become so prominent. It really doesn't make sense, as sometimes I feel like people have forgotten that less is more. A lot of the times, less is more. There doesn't need to be so much of the exact same content, the exact same washed out, same storytelling quips and fourth wall breaking. Like, when it makes sense for the character to do it, then it makes sense. But I just wish that the heart of these films, the heart of these projects, was found again. And I really don't know why it was all lost. Because some movies nowadays, not saying I watch many movies, I won't lie, but I do know that there are some out there that have regained the heart, that have regained and captured what made Lord of the Rings great. And one of those I would have to attribute Dune. The new Dune movies, I have not seen them, but from what I've heard, it can be essentially the modern day equivalent to what Lord of the Rings was for the time, with the overall atmosphere and the sci-fi elements and everything just building and culminating into something amazing and otherworldly, just like Lord of the Rings kind of was. But enough of my rambling on that. I just kind of wanted to say Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power Season 2 has been enjoyable. Nothing too crazy in terms of like you would need to watch it. Like, if you know the Lord of the Rings and enjoy it and want more content, it's there for you, but you're not missing out if you don't watch it. But I would overall recommend it as a fan of the series, though I do know it does take its creative liberties, and in saying so, it does make for some maybe awkward moments where you think that that character wouldn't do what they just did. And it's just the creative liberties that are taken that are the most weak, like the weakest moments of the series so far. But otherwise, it's been enjoyable. My friend and I have been watching it, and he's kind of been the one to show me, not the Lord of the Rings itself, as I grew up loving the Lord of the Rings, and it's always been one of my favorite things. It's literally my favorite film franchise ever, alongside the Hobbit films, even if they are a little bit drawn out. I will have to say that Ryan here, my buddy, he is the one that showed me Avatar. And I kind of wanted to transition into that because Avatar, not the blue people. I seen the blue people. Probably back in 2009, I watched Avatar once and never again. Great film. I know that it like has its fans and its dedicated fan base. Like, it was a good film, but wasn't one that really connected with me. Maybe if I watched it nowadays as an adult, I might connect with it more. At the time, I watched it, like I said, in 2009 when it came out on DVD, and I was 10 years old, if not 11, depending on when it came out after its theatrical release. But not the blue people, as I was saying, it was The Last Airbender. And The Last Airbender is something that kind of, has blown into popularity as of late, and all thanks to Netflix. And Netflix itself, I could go on about them and how they kind of ruin things too. They feel the need to take these animated franchises in particular and turn them into live action, and usually in doing so, not all the time, but usually, it really loses the heart of what the original had. The spirit and the whimsy of the original series, whatever it might be, is usually lost when it gets translated to this live action adaptation that Netflix kind of formulaically makes. Now, you think of the most recent Netflix adaptations, and you would think of not only Avatar: The Last Airbender, but even further into One Piece. And that being a huge anime, like one of the staple animes alongside Dragon Ball and everything. Luckily, Dragon Ball hasn't been adapted. I mean, it has been with its movies over the years, but Netflix hasn't taken it yet. I'm sure it's only a matter of time, though, because why wouldn't they at this point? at least give it a shot, right? But because I feel like they see that it's profitable. It's a way to get these animated shows to a wider audience. Because a lot of people don't watch cartoons. A lot of people are still in the mindset that cartoons are for kids and only for kids. And then when it comes to anime, it has its own stigma around it, and for it just being for people that are weird or different. Like, personally, if a story's good, it's good. It can be animated, it can be in whatever fucking region it wants to be, and it can also be live action. Like, if a story is good, it's good, and if it's worth telling, you can tell by just listening to the damn story. But Netflix here, they decide to make these live action adaptations, and I think the one that they started with, or at least the one that gained the most traction in the beginning, was Death Note. And that one, it wasn't a series. They haven't perfected what their craft is now yet, because at the time they tried to make it into a movie. I never watched it. I don't really know much about Death Note aside from the concept that you write a name in a book and that person then dies. And that's more of a question than a statement because I really don't know. But that is what they started with. And then I also know recently, or maybe not so recent, but there was a Cowboy Bebop live action series that was made. I was kind of looking forward to it because I've always wanted to see Cowboy Bebop. But the same thing happened. It came out and people found out, oh, it does not have the original spark, the original heart of the actual anime itself. And I really don't know how it's always missed, how it's always misconstrued, because it can't be hard to adapt something, or maybe just don't adapt it. Leave it. Let people experience it the way it was intended. And I don't think that it will ever be a possibility with the way that all of these companies are just so money hungry. But to go and focus back onto Avatar, The Last Airbender, that show, wow. It is something that I talk about here because it is amongst Lord of the Rings. It's not in the same universe, not in Middle Earth, like they have no actual connection. You just watch Avatar The Last Airbender and you can really feel like the story is an epic, kind of just like Lord of the Rings, the being the 3 books and the big massive journey, again, light versus darkness to an extent. And it's kind of the makings of any great story, a great epic. And both of them tell amazing stories. And Avatar The Last Airbender, it took me a while to finish it. Not because it was bad or anything, but just because circumstances. I'm also busy all the time. But we started watching Korra 2. Haven't finished that yet, God no. Got to season 2 and just got a little busy. We haven't started it back up yet. But I wanted to talk on Avatar The Last Airbender and say that it is a great show. And it's been gone on about, on and on, that a lot of people love it. And the live action remake, or adaptation would be the better word to use, it didn't really capture what the original had. And it changed things yet again for the wider audience that it's trying to pander to. And it's really sad to see that the live action take on what is an amazing story and has amazing music and has an amazing world that you just want to get lost in, it didn't capture what could have been. It is one of the better ones, though. I will give you that, alongside the One Piece live action. They are the better adaptations, but there's many bad ones out there. And I guess this whole rambling conversation that I'm going on right now is kind of just to say that art, in its purest form, shouldn't have to be adapted into a certain way to make it more generic and more squeaky clean, to try to pander to a wider audience. That shouldn't be the case with art. Art has its niches, whatever it might be it music, be it film, any sort of thing that you could think of. They will have their own proper niches, and it's okay to not be universal. Like, not everyone needs to watch Lord of the Rings. They should, in terms of how good it is, but you shouldn't have to change something to make it appeal to more people, when in the first place, you're now making it appeal less to the people that loved it in the first place and gave it a voice and allowed it to be heard. And in doing so, it loses what it was and all of the magic that it had. And I know that rambling on it doesn't help at all, but I just hope that people kind of resonate with this if they are creative or anything, that stay true to yourself. Don't try to pander to all of these different artists or these different people or these different communities, because you will find your own community by making your own through your own creative process. And to create your own world, your own music, your own sound, whatever it might be, to create you and show people who you truly are through your art, that's all you need to do. It doesn't need to be changed. It doesn't need to be censored. It needs to be genuinely and authentically you. But to top all of that off, to kind of switch gears here real quick, the thought of being you is something that a lot of people struggle with. A thought that you can truly be your authentic self and you don't really have to change to these certain societal roles. And a lot of people don't understand or don't feel like that's true. Like, how can I fit in to my job? How can I fit in at school? How can I fit in my family if I'm myself? And I just wanted to kind of say that be you. Even if you're not artistic, as I was just mentioning, regardless of what kind of person you aspire to be, if it is a good one, then be yourself authentically. And if you have any problems, of course, work through them. Obviously, I'm an advocate for mental health and growing and changing. Like, everyone is going to have their own arc, just as an anime would, just as a story would. Like, you're going to have your own arc, be it you being a Frodo-esque character or a Sam-esque character, Aang-esque character, whoever you are, even if you're someone that aspires to be like Sora, as I do from Kingdom Hearts. You gotta be your authentic self and show yourself out there for how you want people to view you. And I don't think that you should limit yourself and try to pretend to be something you're not, because it's exhausting. And it honestly makes life a lot harder. And I wouldn't ever want anyone around me in my circle to be anyone that they're not. And I guess what I'm trying to say is that everyone is beautiful in their own right. And I hope that one day, whoever is listening can feel beautiful in their own skin if for whatever reason they don't right now. Give it time and believe in yourself, because one day you'll get there. Anyways, enough kind of rambling on all of that. Just, again, Lord of the Rings, something I love. It's great. Lego Lord of the Rings, holy fuck. That was one of my favorite ways to experience the story. It came out later, obviously, but I got it on the PS3 and platinumed that shit. It was literally a Lego Skyrim, and if anyone gets the chance to play Lego Lord of the Rings, if you're a fan of Lord of the Rings, give it a shot, because I will tell you, it does not disappoint, like, at all. Very fun. Obviously, it's made for kids, but you can tell, like, it's not just... It's essentially not just a kid's game. It's more fun for the whole family, if you will. So if you're an adult like myself, you'll still enjoy it, like, so long as you like Lord of the Rings. Anyways, to kind of cap all this off, I just kind of wanted to talk about the upcoming When We Were Young festival and kind of what that means for the whole emo music scene. I know it's kind of a drastic jump from what we were just talking about, but to kind of get it back on pace with music, the When We Were Young festival is something that happens in Las Vegas, and it's an amazing festival in terms of, if you haven't gotten to see all these bands before, go see them, but it is a little bit of a mess at the same time, just in terms of price gouging and kind of feeding off this nostalgia, which is also found in the Lord of the Rings and these other franchises that I've been talking about this episode. nostalgia baiting or nostalgia feeding, like whatever you want to call it. It's kind of disgusting, the fact that they will just keep on kind of prodding that bear and like, here, more, give us more money. And it's sad that nostalgia is something that is such a huge pushing factor for sales of anything and everything. And sometimes I wish it wasn't. Because When We Were Young Fest, I will say, is an amazing festival. I met someone incredibly important to me there when I went. And it was completely unexpected. Best trip I've ever been on. I will touch on that in another episode in the future. This upcoming When We Were Young festival is legendary. Like, I know it hasn't happened yet. It happens in October. But it seems to be legendary because there's so many artists, so many bands that their whole gimmick this year is playing some of their most iconic albums from start to finish. Logistically, I have no idea how that's going to work because albums are usually pretty long. But like, to hear The Black Parade by My Chemical Romance in full, hello, and A Lesson in Romantics by Mayday Parade. Like, I could go on. I don't want to kind of just list all these off, but there's so many artists coming to the When We Were Young festival in Vegas, and I must say it looks like an incredible lineup. I'm so jealous to the people that are able to go. I want to go so bad. And we'll see if I get there, but I'm not going to hold my breath. It's just kind of up in the air right now. It would be a last-minute decision, as my first trip was, which you all will hear about in the next coming episodes. But the reason I bring this all up is because this whole nostalgia baiting and using things that people just grew up loving or associations with certain things, like, they're bringing back Warped Tour. And Warped Tour was something from, I want to say, back in the early 2000s is really when it was huge. And likes of MCR, Katy Perry got her start there. The many artists that just kind of took that stage and exploded into their own, and it kind of created a subculture of these, I want to say, Warped Tour bands would be the best way to just describe them. Sounds generic, but that's because that's what they were. Not all of them, because some of them turned into bands of their own and really found their own voice, their own footing outside of Warped Tour. Not all of them did, though. And to ramble on about this is just to say that Warped Tour is coming back, and I don't really know how to feel about it. It's crazy to say that it's coming back, but it has a lot of negative light towards it. Amongst the positivity, like, obviously you want to think of, oh, the nostalgia, how good it was and everything like that. And it wasn't something I was able to go to ever, because living where I live in Canada, we don't get shit like that. Again, just doesn't come up here. But it is something that I would like to experience once, so I'm excited for it, but more so cautiously excited for it, because it could be something that's a maybe too good to be true. Yet to be seen. I want to stay optimistic, but we will see. I hope it leads to more of this kind of movement for alternative music and that kind of scene to maybe come back into the limelight. But at the same time, if it's not meant to be, it's not meant to be, and I just really hope there isn't crazy price gouging. Anyways, to kind of wrap everything up, I wanted to mention again, if you need any makeup, you know where to go. Curse Cosmetics. Use my code LIGHTSMONARCH. No punctuation, no spaces, at checkout for 10% off. Again, 10% off. Use the code LIGHTSMONARCH at checkout at Curse Cosmetics. You can find the links in the description of the episode. And if you guys pick anything up, let me know. Reach out to me on my socials, again, at LIGHTSMONARCH, and join in the conversation there. Tell me what you think of this episode. Tell me your thoughts on Lord of the Rings, what you first did to experience it. Like, my dad is the one that showed me Lord of the Rings and made me fall in love with it ever since I was a kid. Like, I was born 99, so the first movie came out 2001. So I didn't get to watch it right when it came out, but I do remember the movies, especially the third one, being out and it being a huge thing. I think that's when my dad bought it on DVD, but I also remember seeing the dual VHS, and a time ago, a real big throwback. It's just memories like that are things that I look back on and get a huge grin on my face as I have right now. You can probably even hear it through my voice. It's just such nostalgia and cherished memories that I have with my dad, because that man, really love him so much. Amongst my mom too, of course, she showed me a lot of good things too. And they've showed me so many things that really helped me grow into who I am today, amongst the things that I found myself, of course. But enough rambling. I apologize. I did want to share some new releases that came out on Friday, as I normally do. With those new releases being Pretend by The Plot and You, a great band, one that I really adore. I want to say they're kind of newer in terms of like them finding their current sound, but they're really nothing new. They're just amazing. So please, if you like heavy metalcore kind of out there music, in terms of like you watch their music videos and it's like, whoa, what the fuck are these guys on? Go give them a listen. Love that shit. And Heavy as the Crown, Linkin Park, they are back again. This time with a League of Legends world song. It's off their new album, Heavy as the Crown, off their new album From Zero, of course. But the song, Heavy as the Crown, as I was saying, brand new. I really think Emily Armstrong proved herself in the vocal department on this one. And not to mention the last one too, of course, but this one, there's a moment towards the end, and if you listen to it, you'll know what I mean. Wow. Holy fuck, wow. It caught me so off guard. I think my jaw was dropped when I heard it. And I was like, this is what everyone needed to kind of shut up a little bit about her voice not being good enough. Like, yeah, it's never going to be Chester. It never is. It's never going to be him. And I feel like if they went for somebody that really sounded like him, more people would be upset because it isn't him. She proved herself for the voice that she has. Wow. Who she is, don't care, just voice alone, musically, wow. And last but not least, for an album that I was looking forward to from a band, shout out to my best friend Tyler, of course, love him, he's in Calgary, shout out, hope you're doing good out there, boo. This album by Rain City Drive, called Things Are Different Now. It just came out as well on Friday, and they shared single after single. The album's finally out. Wow. It's good. Like, I must say, it's very good, and I hope you guys enjoy it too. It is more kind of metalcore, melodic kind of rock and roll. It's, I don't really know how to explain it or describe it. Just go give it a listen. It's something that I really enjoy, and if you want kind of a peek into what I've been listening to or the releases that I've been excited for, well, there they are. And there's more to come soon, of course. We got more releases around the corner. Every single week it seems like something new comes out, so I will talk about it when that happens, when that comes to be. And thanks again for listening to my rambles. I will be back again on Monday with another episode. And I wish all of you listeners an amazing day. I've been Casey. This has been Melodic Memories of Light's Monarch. And thanks again for discovering the music within.